I strongly believe that as a nation we do have a moral responsibility to stand beside and behind those who stood up for and fought for us. And I think this is true for those who wear a uniform today, as well as the veterans of the past generations and the past wars of our country's history. That's why I have pushed for, along with many others in the U.S. Congress, legislation to honor and recognize the contributions of our Vietnam veterans, and to encourage every American to do the same as often as we possibly can. That's why I've co-sponsored legislation, for example, that will address some of the unique conditions that afflict Vietnam veterans, including the health effects of exposure to Agent Orange. And not just those who served on land, but those who served at sea as well, who are often forgotten, I think. This service today reminds us of all the service and sacrifice of a generation of young Iowans. I believe it's especially appropriate that the Centerville High School band and that the choir are here today with us, because unlike me and many of you in the audience, they don't remember the Vietnam War, they don't remember the aftermath that far too many of the Vietnam War veterans were forced to struggle with and struggle through without the support they needed and deserved. And I think that's something that was already mentioned by Rick, and those of us who lived through that time remember it all too well. I think we should have services like this more often in more places around this country, because each generation has sacrificed on behalf of our great country, and it's up to each generation, successive generation, to ensure that the sacrifices of those who came before them are not forgotten. And by coming here today as a community, we don't forget these 13 who made the ultimate sacrifice. We don't forget their families. And I just want to say one last word about these recent conflicts. We have done a great job, I think, in recent years of honoring the folks who have gone off to war, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, or served in the Sinai Peninsula, as many of our National Guard folks have done. We've done a really great job, I think, of honoring those folks. I have a stepson and a daughter-in-law who are active duty Marines. He served in Iraq and Afghanistan. She's been in Iraq. But we haven't done enough, as was mentioned, of why we're having this today. For our Vietnam veterans, for our Korean War veterans. We've done a lot for the World War II veterans. I didn't serve. I'm of the Vietnam generation. I didn't put on the uniform. And it took me a long time too, I think, to appreciate what our Vietnam veterans did for us and for our country. So today is maybe the beginning of that for some folks who are here today. And for that, I thank Rick and Lisa and all the others who put this event together. But as we go forward, let's make sure that whenever we talk about our veterans, that we talk about our Vietnam veterans too, and that we thank them, and the veterans who were with us from the Vietnam War, that we thank them. Whenever you see them, thank them for their service, thank their families as well. I thank all of you for coming today, and in particular, I thank Rick for inviting me to this event. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, now we're going to have a music by the CHS band, and then we'll have our next speaker. appreciate the talents of our band members here. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce again. Remember 2 years ago, he was here and spoke for us. And he's a real great guy, and definitely another friend of the veteran. Our representative, Kurt Swain.
It is really a great honor to be here this morning. I want to second what those that have gone before said in terms of thanks to Rick and to Lisa for all their work. We are so blessed as a county and as a state for their efforts. They have such great hearts, and they care for veterans so much. We're so blessed to have them. I also want to say it's such an honor to be here with Congressman Lopsack and Dean Castor. They are great friends, and they are two of the people that I respect very most, and so it's great to be here with them. And to be here with all of the servicemen and women who we owe so much, and we are so thankful for. Thank you to each and every one of you. My comments are going to be brief, and they are going to, because just anything that I can say seems so small and so insignificant in contrast to the great heroes and the great acts of heroism that we come here to acknowledge this morning. And they're going to be even a little more brief than I had intended, because I had planned to read the very passage that Rick read from President Reagan's speech. I have it marked. I think that President Reagan, in his speech at the Veterans Memorial on November the 11th, 2008, began the healing process for our country. And I think the passage that Rick read went a great length in terms of removing the cloud of ambiguity that had surrounded so much of our national thinking on this issue. And I think that he spoke with such grace and such clarity. And I would commend the entire speech to all of you. I won't reread the passage that I had intended to read, but I think instead I will focus on another portion of his speech in which President Reagan spoke of the living love of those that sacrifice so much. And it reminded me of a sermon that I just happened in. I was in San Antonio, and I just happened to drop in by a church, and the topic of the sermon and the issue was whether or not there can be any love, true love, without sacrifice. And the gist of the sermon was that really the two are almost synonymous, that love and sacrifice are almost the same. And part of the insight of President Reagan's address was he looked to the love of these veterans and to what they had given. And sometimes we focus on the sacrifice, which is very much appropriate, but it's also important for us to keep in mind the object of the sacrifice. And he spoke of their buddies, the servicemen and women with whom they served, by and next to and with, and the love that they had for the servicemen with whom they served. And he spoke of the love for their families, who they left hesitantly, but for whom they served and died so proudly. And he spoke of the love for their country, for all of us, for whom they gave their last full measure of devotion. It is good that we come today and to celebrate the lives of these great Americans. It is important that we honor their patriotism For it is right for us to be thankful for those who gave their lives for our liberties. It is important for us to respect their character, their courage. Because when we look at their courage, we begin to understand the foundation of all good character. And it's most important of all, that we aspire to find that and for whom we are willing to die, as these 13 brave Americans did. For then, and only then, may it be truly said that we have truly lived. May God bless the memory of these 13 brave Americans, and may God bless all of you.
Thank you very much, Representative Swain. Now we have some music by the CHS Choir in the direction of Katie Durley. And then after that, we'll have another more music by the CHS Band. And then we'll have the reading of the names, and I'll discuss how we can do that at that time.